Hey, what's going on, everybody? RogersBase here with my review of One Punch Man anime episode 8, The Deep Sea King. Now, I knew this week's episode was going to be good based on the promo alone and based on the little bit that I know about the manga, even though I'm an anime-only watcher. A lot of you guys have been telling me that the Sea King arc is really exciting and very fun. And sure enough, this, I'm assuming, is the first half. It looks like next week, with Saitama looking serious at the end of the episode, that Saitama, Moomin Rider, and Genos are finally going to make their way to the Deep Sea King, so I'm assuming it'll probably wrap up next episode. But with that being said, this was an awesome setup episode, and in particular, the fight between Sonic and the Deep Sea King was awesome. Beautifully animated, seeing Sonic just completely go all in, jumping between the buildings, meeting a bunch of new hero characters. That's always a big thing that I like about this show whenever we meet new C-Class, A-Class, B-Class, S-Class, whatever. I always like meeting the new heroes, and there were a lot of them introduced this episode. So overall, just super exciting in between the action and introductions of new characters. In terms of the new characters, I think my favorite was the Puri Puri prisoner. What the heck was his deal? Hands down, probably the funniest character that we've been introduced to so far, and he's an S-Class. And it clarifies in the episode that he actually wouldn't have been the lowest tiered S-Class if Genos didn't actually surpass him. But since Genos surpassed him, he is now the lowest tier S-Class hero. But it doesn't matter. He thinks he can go in on the Sea King alone. And, you know, he does that bulk up angel style attack. And I laughed the whole way through. I think Puri Puri Prisoner is a great character. I hope he's not dead, despite the Sea King's speech about how every one of his attacks, you know, is meant to kill the other guy. But hopefully we see him again, because I thought his fighting style was really funny when he first says, okay, I'm going to go half in, and he starts bulking up, and then he rips his boyfriend's sweater or whatever. I was like, what the heck is going on there? Super funny. He's like, oh yeah, my two boyfriends in prison made that sweater for me, and Sonic is just like, I don't want to have any part in this. This is so weird. And I love the part too where Puri Puri Prisoner starts actually fighting, and then Sonic says, he's like, wait a minute, this guy isn't human. He's not an angel, and I'm definitely not sticking around to watch to see what he does. That was just great. It was really funny. And the animation for that part was really cool, too. It had a little bit of throwback kind of to Sailor Moon when he puts his head up in the sky and then the stars go with the pink and the rainbows. It was just hysterical. I really do hope we see more of that character. He's very funny, and he does seem pretty powerful. You know, despite the fact that the Deep Sea King ended up blowing him back, he still seems like a pretty powerful guy. I mean, you don't make it to S-Class by being terrible. You know, I don't know. I mean, that being said, I'm an anime-only watcher. Maybe there's somebody who's rising through the ranks, you know, who doesn't deserve to be there. But either way, we're going to find out relatively soon. But I did really enjoy the fight between, again, Puri Puri Prisoner and the Deep Sea King. And I thought the speech they kept giving in particular was really good. How, you know, he was saying, oh, that only hurt a little, and the Sea King was like, it only hurt a little. But in reality, Puri Puri Prisoner was actually really hurting, and that's why Sonic finally went in and attacked the Sea King. And man, that sequence, when it starts raining and the Sea King finally gets back his full power, he's like, you know, now I have the power of water surrounding me. I'm in the rain. I shriveled up when I first came onto land, and now I'm ready to attack you at full force. I was like, this is going to be a good fight. And really, I'm glad that the story separated Saitama from the action, because obviously Saitama would blow this man back with one punch. But seeing all these heroes try to like give it their all and actually go in and attack, it makes for a really interesting kind of like power level discussion in between the heroes that aren't Saitama, because again, Saitama's, you know, so far beyond everybody else. But I thought it was interesting when he actually goes into the stadium where all the refugees are, and then the two C-Class heroes, the B-Class and the A-Class, Snek, I want to say his name is, their old teacher from like episode 2 or 3, when they end up going in, they just get completely decimated by the Sea King at his full power. Again, you see Puri Puri Prisoner, he was an S-Class hero, and he gets bopped by the Sea King, and Sonic was even having trouble as well. Now, mind you, I think Sonic, if he had a weapon, he even mentioned it in this episode, if Sonic had a weapon, he would be able to take out the Sea King. And to me personally, just because it's fun to discuss, I think Genos and Sonic are kind of on the same level. Obviously, Saitama is so far above them, but I think the two of them I kind of see as even. I feel like if Sonic actually wanted to be a hero and wasn't just going to be like the rival of Saitama and trying to run around, I do think ultimately, you know, he could probably be an S-Class hero. He's super fast, and I like to, I don't know what was up with the animation of just making everybody naked when they finally were getting hurt, but like when Sonic gets out of his prisoner clothes and you hear like the crunch when the Sea King was like crushing his hand together, you thought, oh my God, Sonic is gonna die. And then sure enough, no, Sonic popped out of his clothes and then was like running down the street naked. And then Genos is like, who's that pervert? What's he doing? And then finally Saitama's like, wait, I just saw a dude running in the rain. Like, did he miss his bath or something? I'm gonna go save him. And while we're talking about Saitama, the character that Saitama was paired with for the majority of this episode was Moomin Rider, licenseless rider, and I didn't think we were going to see him again since like when he was first introduced a couple. How many episodes ago was that? Like 6 or 7. It wasn't the first episode. I think he was in the second episode. Regardless, it was awesome to see him back, and I actually have respect for that character now. Before I wasn't really like a licenseless rider fanboy, but now I actually really, really like him. I think it's cool that he's this C-class hero, and still in all, he sees a threat like the Sea King and still wants to go in, and yet he still has the same kind of personality quirks that he had when we first were introduced to him. I love the bit where he's riding down one of the streets in City J and he sees the red light and he's like, a red light at all times, just like this. It's like, bro, blow the red light. You're trying to get to the Sea King. What's wrong with you? And I love that little moment where he sort of meets up with Saitama and the two of them decide to go get the Sea King. And again, I think like, even if you had Licenseless Rider, despite his goofiness, and Genos, Sea King's gone. Especially if Sonic gets added to the mix and you have Sonic and Genos and Licenseless Rider, he's done. Sea King is done. But that being said, I feel like, this guy's setting up to be a relatively, major villain. Any villain that doesn't die in one episode is a pretty big villain in terms of One Punch Man. And I do think ultimately Saitama will probably come through next episode and blow him away. But in the meantime, it's exciting to see this big, threatening villain actually do some damage for once. And even his henchmen were pretty powerful. When we saw the A-class hero Stinger near the beginning, and he was taking out all the different seamen. Sure, the Sea King ended up taking him down, but I thought that was a really neat sequence. I like seeing Stinger. I like seeing, I think his name was Lightning Kick or Lightning Bolt. I wrote his name down, Lightning Max. So they were both A-class heroes, and again, they were still blown away by the Sea King. I don't particularly care for Lightning Max. He was like, whatever, he seems cool. He's got lightning powers or whatever in his shoes, fine. And I did like Stinger. I think his weapon in particular is really cool with the bamboo shoot and the staff. But ultimately, if we never see either of them again, it's not going to be a huge, big thing. The one character that was introduced this episode that, again, I need to see again, I think he's very funny. I like his power set, and I think he's just a funny character overall, is Puri Prisoner. He is the MVP of the new characters this episode, definitely. But of course, Licenseless Rider and Genos and Sonic, they came through this episode. There was some great action. And once again, beautiful animation, wonderful music. This show is really unlike anything else that is on, I was going to say on TV, but really on this anime season, really this year. This is hands down the best new anime of the year. I love it. And if you guys are still debating, whether or not you should start watching the show, I highly recommend watching it. Another big thing, before I get into my final critiques of the episode, a lot of people ask me in the comments where I watch One Punch Man every week. I watch it on this site called daisuki.net. They have it in HD, like as soon as it goes up. I think it goes up at like 12, like noon Eastern time, I want to say, but I'm not sure on that. I watched it at like 11, and I'm in Chicago right now, so I think it's 12 Eastern time, but it might come on a little earlier. Maybe it comes on like 11:30. I'm not really sure. If you guys look it up, you could look on the website. You could see when it comes on, but that's where I watch it because it's in HD. It has English subtitles. It's great. It's legal. So Daisuki, if you're going to watch the show, that's where I would recommend watching it. Coming back to this episode, though, the other new character that I liked, and I don't know if we're ever going to see him again, and we didn't even get to see him fight, really. We just saw him stand up to the Sea King when the Sea King was going to attack all the prisoners, was All Back Man. I thought it was funny, and the way we get introduced to the character is he's standing there and you just see his name written on the back of his jacket in like weird red crayon. I thought it was really funny, and that's kind of the thing about One Punch Man, right, is that the action is so good in every single episode, but the way they time out comedy beats, even in an episode that's serious like this, where they have an Oni level threat, the Heroes Association said this is a demon level threat, be on the alert, this could potentially do a lot of damage. They still managed to put in a little bit of comedy with stuff like Puri Prisoner, with stuff like Sonic getting out of his clothes, with stuff like even Genos drying the dishes at the apartment with Saitama with his hand. It was just like little things like that really make me appreciate this show. And ultimately, again, I think it is one of the best anime on TV, and this episode really did all the Sea King stuff justice. Again, as somebody who only watched the anime and has only heard about the Sea King arc from those of you guys who leave things in the comments below and tell me about the manga, I think that it did a very, very good job. I'm giving this week's episode a 4 out of 5. I do think that next week's, now that we have Genos, Moomin Rider, and Saitama thrown into the mix, and Sonic going to get a weapon, I think it's done for Sea King. But ultimately, you know, that's just up to the show. They could end up dragging this out a little more. I wouldn't mind seeing a one-on-one fight between Genos and the Sea King, kind of like what we saw this week with Sonic and the Sea King. Especially when the Sea King was shooting out that, like, the eel tongue thing and he was going to slash him. It was great. I loved all the attacks. I loved the animation. Loved the action. Again, 4 out of 5 this week. But guys, let me know in the comments below what you thought of this week's episode of One Punch Man. Be sure to like this review if you liked anything I had to say, if you agree with my review score, or you just like the show. And then please be sure to subscribe because I bring you guys One Punch Man reviews every single week. And until next week, I will talk to you guys later. Bye-bye! And one last thing, I don't like Amai Mask. I meant to mention that during my review. I don't like him. He seems weird. Get him out of here.